is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have. For both are infinite. I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu.
Madam.
I'm on, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little. I will come again.
Indeed. If that thy bent of love be honourable,
yes,
thy purpose
is full of
Oh, Romeo, Romeo.
Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. An original idea that he totally thought of first. Just kidding. It actually starts here, in Rome, the 1st century BCE. It starts with this guy. His name's Ovid, and he was a Roman poet. He happened to write something called Metamorphosis. No, not about the one guy who wakes up as a cockroach, but rather a story about two people named Pyramus and Thisbe. A story of two lovers from warring families which ends in tragic, miscommunicated suicide. Does that sound familiar to you? I bet it does. But this isn't exactly where Shakespeare got it from. So, let's go here. To Italy in 1476. It's beautiful, I know, but stay focused, because we gotta meet this guy. His name's Masuccio Salernitano, and he writes a novel, of course, titled The Novellino of Masuccio, because he's real original in that respect. But regardless, these are his characters, Mariotto and Ginoza. Their story is feuding families, tragic love stories, suicides, yada yada yada, but still, that's not where Shakespeare gets it from. And now it's been a few years, alright, but we're still in Italy. And we're going to meet a guy named Luigi da Porta, who was a soldier but also a writer. He was inspired by Masuccio and wrote a version of his own titled Historia Novelmente Ritrovata di due nobili amanti, or I think, which roughly translates to newly found story of two noble lovers. I bet you can figure what that novel's about. Anyway, pay attention because the next part, well, it's going to go by a little fast. This is Matteo Bendeo, and he reads the Novellino of Masuccio and he loves it. So much so that he makes his own version of basically the exact same novel. This guy, Pierre, loves Bendeo's novel, and he translates it to French so that all of his French homies can read it too. Then we have this guy, who's the main player of the game. Arthur Brooke read the French translation of the Novellino, and he loved it so much that he's inspired to write the tragical history of Romeo and Juliet. And, well, that is the one that Shakespeare reads. So, Shakespeare writes Romeo and Juliet in London, sometime between 1591 and 1596, and, well, it becomes a success. It gets published and printed multiple times. The popularity of the play allowed Shakespeare to become a shareholder in the Lord Chamberlain's Men, where he continued to not only perform Romeo and Juliet, but every other iconic play we know of from him, as well as giving him enough financial security to open the Globe Theatre in London. And, well, the rest is history. When Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet was made in London, it didn't take long for word of the play to spread. It spent the next century bouncing around the rest of Europe, with performances in nearly every country and nearly every city. And eventually, it moved around the world, with versions of Romeo and Juliet on nearly every continent. But what really marked its solidification into literary history is when the play made it to New York City in 1730, where we find ourselves here, at what was known as the New Theatre, with a London company of comedians. And on January 28th, 1754, the show premiered, and it marked theatrical history for the United States. And it literally never stopped. Romeo and Juliet has had 2 full centuries of productions, even as far back as last year, on Broadway, in New York, 200 years later, and only a few miles apart. Isn't that so cool? So, what started with Ovid roughly 2,000 years ago just kept transforming into something that was new, but still the same in its core. And that's how we got one of the most famous and important pieces of literary history, Romeo and Juliet. Almost nothing is truly an original idea. Everything stems from something, and every idea and human experience evolves and grows through us as people. Our society may change, our legislation might change, our technology evolves, and our clothing is different. But themes of love, heartbreak, tragedy, perseverance, and happiness are human nature, and they are the very center of our being. And that stays the same, no matter what the century is. As long as humankind is making art, it will always be a remix of something.